There's a lot of times where stress becomes overwhelming, whether that stress is being caused by something at home, something at the workplace, or just driving on your way to any location. There could be different sources of stress. And if you ever heard of the saying, the straw that broke the camel's back, that one instance with stress may be something that will lead to irreversible damage in your life. And that's why I want to take time to speak about this topic. And just in case you haven't heard, the straw that broke the camel's back is basically an analogy where if you put one straw on a camel's back, the camel won't be affected. But if you put 10 straws, it won't be affected either. But eventually, there comes a time where you put enough straws that it gets heavy. This large mountain of straws in the camel's back will break it. So, my people, stress is something that we all deal with. And the first thing I want to tell you about stress is that it's one of those things that is shared without consent. You have different type of consent. Consent for medical procedures, consent for recording videos and coming out on footage, and there's all types of consent. But stress is one of those things that is shared without your consent. Think about your workplace, think about your spouse, think about whatever you want to think about. Someone lashing out at you, let's say road rage, for example, they're being stressed out, they're having a bad day, and their stress is being shared with you without your consent. So please understand, my people, it says a lot more about them than it does about you. Whenever you see people in your vicinity who are egging you on, who are being passively aggressive, whenever you have somebody in your life that is lashing out at you or being less than prudent, most likely that person's having a bad day. And don't let them bring you into their world. Use wisdom, because on the flip side of things, a person who just won $100,000 commission is driving in their car and they look over at their wife, they look over at their husband, and their husband smells good and looks good, and they look back and they find their kids smiling because they just passed all their exams with honor roll. Would they be stressed? Like, think about it. If that was your particular situation and someone cut you off, you wouldn't be stressed. And then you have people with road rage, or like I said, any type of circumstances similar to this one, you're wound up. And I know from experience, when I was becoming a doctor, I was so wound up from the stress of becoming a doctor, from taking exams in Spanish and drinking like 7 cups of coffee, where my classmates would get next to me and I was like that black cat who had his back arched ready to attack something or attack somebody. And all that stress led to less than favorable outcomes in my personal life and in my professional life. So I'm just trying to tell you, whenever you see someone behaving similarly or just showing signs of having a bad day, please understand that it's not personal. It's just that stress is one of those things that is shared without your consent. Another thing is, our beliefs and thoughts are basically the lens from which we see the world. So we are what we think, we are what we feel, and we are what we do. So if you got a person who's thinking about stressful things like bills, if you got a person who's feeling down because of their hopelessness, and if you got a person doing things that are not productive, that combination is like the perfect recipe for stress. That combination is the perfect recipe for a negative mental attitude. So please understand, when you find someone or when you feel stress, it says a lot more about your current state than it does your reality or your, like, it doesn't label the person as this is who they are in for the rest of their life. It just labels them for that particular time. Another thing I want to mention about stress is that stress is a silent killer. I've personally treated people who have had a heart attack in their late 30s. You would never expect it. And usually it was caused because of a high stress lifestyle. My particular situation as well. I had an autoimmune disease that attacked my skin, eczema, psoriasis. I'm atopic. I had asthma and a whole bunch of allergies. And through medical school, the stress was so high that I not only lashed out at my classmates, but I also started to experience physical manifestations. My skin started to mess up really, really bad. So I just want to tell you, stress can be the on switch, because consider a disease within your body off. And if you have enough stress in your life, it'll turn it on. So a woman who has not been suffering from rheumatoid arthritis may go through a very rough patch in their life and then have this autoimmune disease go ahead and start. And the good thing about this is that there's ways to get around it. So, for example, if you have a positive mental attitude, that's the first start. A cluttered mind or clutter in your life is manifested by, or clutter in your mind is like clutter in your apartment, clutter in your car. Think about it. A person whose car is a mess, most likely their apartment's a mess, and their car and their apartment's a mess because their mind is a mess. There's a connection. Is it a coincidence or a correlation? You tell me. So there's a power of the mind. And please understand, my people, if you have two people with end stage cancer, the person with a positive mental attitude has a better prognosis than the one who has a negative mental attitude. So, here are some things that you can do to improve your stress levels. Number one is you got to have positive venting mechanisms. And yes, meditating, deep breaths, and all this stuff is good. But I dare to say there's something that you can do that's much more effective, which is enter a workout that pushes you. That way, you're able to leverage the deep breathing. You're able to leverage the focus that comes from having your adrenaline system pumping and be able to get a more effective remedy for your stress through work, because work works. And of course, you already know, eat well, sleep well, get social support, and things along those lines. But I'll tell you from my own personal experience, what has helped me deal with stress is basically becoming more resilient. On LinkedIn, on these different platforms, they ask questions like, hey, what do you do if you're having a hard time communicating with a client via email? Like, we're being entertained with the most frivolous things that are making us weak. Like, it's like asking a question like, what do you do if Uber Eats takes too long to come to your house? Like, the whole basically what I'm trying to say, my people, is the topics that are being entertained and put in our face are making us weak. So if you want to reduce your stress, if you want to lead a healthier lifestyle, you could do it. But please remember, work works. That is the quote for the day. Work works. Hope this helps. Peace.